whether we like it or whether we don't, something's got to be done. Utilizing everything that we can utilize is what we need to think about. No matter where we go or what we do, we still got to do it. Yeah, if somebody says, well, if you have a leak in your roof, how soon do you start realizing that you got to fix it? Well, for 20 years now, it's been passed down the road. Passed it on to us 20 years later. And now we got to fix it. Will $13 million fix it? We don't have the answer to that now. We can say that it'll fix it for a little while maybe, but it won't fix it permanently, no. If the quarry decides to go 400 foot further they get away from the river, the less chance they got to hit in water, yes they will. Because it's business, that is business. So, we got to realize we got to make decisions. Some we make are going to be very painful. Some we make are not going to be painful. But still we got to shoulder that. As the council of the city, we're the ones that have to shoulder that. The people, we have to shoulder what the people tell us to do. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to represent the people. No matter what it costs me, I'm here to represent the people. That's what I got to do. So, and that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Councilman Sheldon.
I just wanted to say that within our information, the 5 largest users in the city of Delphi is IPC #1, the nursing home #2, the Delphi football field #3, the jail #4, and the laundromat #5. Now, 2 of those we're going to be paying it in taxes because the jail, of course, we support in taxes, and the school we support in taxes. So that's just a pass down. I mean, so, you know, this hits so many ways. It's just unbelievable, the impact. But it's something that has to be done, certainly.
Well, I don't think any of us disagree with that. The fact that something has to be done, but it needs to be done right.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to come back here in 5 or 10 years and be doing the same thing all over again. Or the people that are behind me to do it have to do it all over again.
But how do we know what is right? That's the
Well, I don't know, that's what I'm saying. Somebody has to be smarter than I am to figure that out.
Do we have to, or are we in compliance with, or is it necessary to have a debt coverage ratio in this?
Yes.
How much money are we, do we have to have in reserve to cover this money?
Well, there's two answers to that. One, the SRF program has a requirement, we need to show them 125% bond coverage. And we need to fund a debt service reserve equivalent to the maximum annual payment. And we have 5 years to accomplish that. And we would use a portion of that bond coverage revenue stream to fund that.
We've got that 25% one what we pay a year in a little fund sitting off the side. Like I actually, my business from my bank, I had that 1.15 debt coverage. You're saying we had that 25% set aside forever until the loan's gone?
It's a measurement and point in time, but you should plan on that being the policy that you work under. But that 25%, a portion of it's going to go into that reserve. A portion of it also going to go into dollars available for replacing the critical assets.
After the first 5 years, also, then we have the money reserve.
Yeah.
So I think there was a question earlier about making sure we have funds set aside to maintain assets in the future, and in our calculations that debt reserve, that for 5 years we're going to have to set it aside, but that's going to be calculated into our equations starting in year 6, is that we're still generating that revenue. We don't have to set it aside for bond coverage. So we have it available for capital assets, operation and maintenance. It depends on inflation and things like that.
Correct.
It'll figure into the calculation.
You'll figure in the calculation, and you'll want to, it's hard to think about changing rates in the future, because those rates will be significant, but you're gonna have to use good business practices to keep that coverage, keep the rates moving forward, so that, that you have a system that serves you for many, many years to come. I only say that because whenever you have a significant rate increase, and that kind of just stays in your memory, and you say, well, just raised rates, and you look and say, well, that was 5 years ago. Well, those 5 years go pretty quick, but costs go up in those 5 years.
Mr. Watson, did you have a question?
Yeah, back a few years ago, Stone was such a great thing, and look what we got downtown, we spent $2 million, got $30 million with the asset. How much of the city's money are you willing to put in the water fund? How much, you willing for $2 million in Stellar, you willing for $2 million in the water? I think it's equally as important. Can we take $2 million out of general fund and use it to pay for water?
John and Patty, that's their.
You have a great deal of discretion in your general fund balance. The water, whether you have $2 million or $1 million or $2, I don't know. You have a great deal of discretion in how you can spend those dollars. But you would probably want to look pretty closely at that before committing dollars to that. It's, generally speaking, 99%, if not 100% of water utilities in Indiana support themselves with the help of the taxes from the general fund. They fund it from the water bills. So, because you can do it statutorily, I can say it's not very common in practice. You would have to look very closely at what you need to run the city, because that's your only option for running the city.
So if we had extra money, like riverboat money or something like that, we could take it used for water if it so desires. Edit money, whatever. The county's talking about using edit money for the jail, things like that. Could we help out the ratepayers here, help out the citizens down to lower the rates?
I think something to consider is that with IPC cutting 2/3 of the cost of the utility rates, more or less, and taxpayers and ratepayers funding 100% of the edit dollars that come in, the general dollars that come in. I know riverboat comes from different sources, but you're looking at putting even more of a burden on the ratepayers, or the taxpayers, than you are the ratepayers. That's 2/3 IPC.
But this is an unusual subject, and this is an unusual situation. So, we have edit money. Edit money can be used for this to lessen the burden on the ratepayers. It's sitting there. So there's, if you're talking about taxing people to bring that in, it's already there. And that's not really, it's not traditional tax money, let's just put it that way. And that could very well be used to, you're talking hooking up well 7 to the system, putting the building and the system, the chemicals together in that, and putting an aeration system in. You're looking, from your figures, you're looking at $4 million to do that. Now, if you were going to take edit money to soften that blow, I think that would be very prudent to do.
4 million? $1 million. Just for well 7.
Just the well 7, but you've got building to build and chemicals to offset or to put in there, and also you have an aeration system that I threw in, and that was $500,000 for it.
If you do the aeration, you'll have to do the ground storage as well. So you'd be looking at all of phase 1 essentially. Be
Or
the
majority,
6
all or majority, I think is a fair way to say that.
But it's a way to do this in staggered fashion that would be less burdensome on the city, less detrimental to the city, and certainly less detrimental to the ratepayers.
There's 2 ways that edit funds are sometimes used to help with utility projects. One you have cash in the bank, you can help reduce the amount of borrowing by applying cash. That's not always the case. It's generally speaking, there's not millions of dollars sitting there. You can pledge for the life of the bond issue a portion of your edit revenue stream. The challenge with that is we're talking about a 35-year financing. So committing it for 35 years, it's hard to project if the city's gonna need it, and the city's ability to generate revenues is set really by, the only thing, really nothing is local that you can do. The county sets the edit tax rate, and the state tells you what you can get with your maximum tax levy. When you're looking at committing edit dollars for a long period of time, you're increasing the risk. Now, not to cloud the issue, but what we can do is make a pledge of the edit funds for a shorter period of time. And what that would allow you to do is stagger your increase in your rates, so that you start out with a lower rate increase than you otherwise would, and then the second year you peel off some of the edit and offset that with higher rates. And that kind of on ramp to where your full rates would be over a several year time frame, which might allow you to avoid that going from to where you need to be in
That's
just a
exactly
short
right.
time frame. So that all depends on how much edit you have available and what you'd be sacrificing in terms of what other needs that the city's funding with that. But as part of our study, we certainly could try to get some answers in that area and measure some of the impact if that's a scenario that the city's interested in seeing.
Did I hear you right that there's accumulated pot of money right now of edit?
Do we not yet? Well,
400,000 maybe.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
but we trimmed a lot out of the budget, so we have, even more in there than what we would have normally had. And that's why we did that,
Okay.
for that possibility.
Yeah, I mean, what John said is that to buy the cost of the project down is a very simple way to use edit.
Mhm.
To pledge edit, we run into these little debt limit issues, because a pledge of edit
It's going to.
is a constitutional debt. And so we would advertise sort of what it would take out. It would use up some of their debt limit though, that pledge. That pledge
For
would
that
use up,
time frame.
yeah.
It's just one of the factors that has to be taken into consideration.
But with that, with those 3 or 4 projects there, connecting well 7, the building, the aeration, just taking those 3, and I realize there's more, but taking those 3, could those not be staggered out and done in a deliberate fashion, as opposed to just borrowing all that money, start paying interest on it all at the beginning with our ratepayers getting hammered, and just going with that to do it in a slower process?
That's an engineering question, but I think that was addressed.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna see us do it over a 3 to 5 year period. That's the time frame where we're in that risk of what happens with the existing wells, and we go too slow. We have a plan to solve the problem, we didn't go quick enough. That would be my fear, or something that, we're talking 2021 when these are gonna be done. Phase 2, the construction will be to that, so we're 3 years out before we can say we've got this problem solved. If we start taking action on September 4th, it's 3 years out before phase 2 improvements are actually constructed. The 19 and 20 years we've been using, that's when those projects start on the phasing. Those are gonna take a year and a half to get built. So we're 3 years out from this problem being solved if we move forward in September.
Well,
That's
then
the
it'll
risk.
be offset by delaying the projects too, the interest rates could be higher.
Could be
Bond
lower.
costs possibly could be higher, we couldn't get a grant, I mean, there's a lot of things like that too.
I would, construction cost is gonna escalate.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you add on there at the end, which means you may come back to where you're starting.
So we think the two-phased approach allows you maximum flexibility in the financing, and it doesn't require you to do it all at once or that bigger hit up front.
But it still hits our ratepayers.
Certainly.
Oh, yes.
So, just to be clear, you are having a public hearing tonight, right?
Yeah,
I just-
I think it's kind of evolved into a public
Well, I
hearing
kind of
now.
thought it had, but
Since
you
we-
hadn't called it, and I've been kind of holding off on my questions, thinking they were appropriate for the public hearing. And I will wait for that. But, so the public hearing is tonight. Are you expecting the council to approve the PER on Tuesday?
Correct.
And when they approve that, that's the projects as described in the engineering plan.
It's the technical solutions for the city of Delphi.
And that means, that's it. That's what you're doing.
Correct.
There's nothing else you're going to do. You're not gonna deviate from that plan, no matter what better option comes along. Is that true? Is that,
Kind
I
of.
mean, this is
We're-
final, isn't it?
This is the intended plan. If we discover something in process, obviously we would bring that to the city and say, this is something that would be better to consider. This is the plan that will be submitted, it'll get approved, and then that allows to move forward on the financing and the legal part of the project. So the PER is the approval of the technical elements and how the problem will be solved.
So it's a final plan. So it's a done deal when you do that,
Sounds like
correct?
phase one for sure, phase two could be amended in 2019 or 2020.
It's a living document that can be amended.
And it speaks to what they intend from a technical side on the project. Approval of the PER does not obligate the city to increase rates, nor does it obligate the city to undertake the financing. Those are completely separate and apart from the PER.
What is it that you plan to do on Carrollton Road? When I interviewed you last Monday, just a week ago today, and we talked about Flora coming and talking to the city council, you asked me to wait on that story so that you wouldn't confuse, so that I wouldn't confuse everybody here.
Right.
Well, you know, now it's a done deal on Tuesday. And so what is exactly gonna be done?
Golden Road would be aeration, ground storage, connection of well 3 to this, well
That's-
3 back to well 5.
That's Carrollton Road?
Yeah, that's all right next to the golf course or.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I did not understand that.
Yeah, sorry, that's all,
I thought it was,
no, it's close
Out of
to
the
well
Wabash.
5 and over by,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in our existing well field.
And we're gonna vote on that Monday without the rate.
Tuesday,
It's the PER.
Without the knowledge of what this is gonna do, rate increase wise.
It's the technical elements that are proposed to be built, as Patty said, it comes before the council later on, this is how we would pay for it and what the costs are, those are separate approvals for those things. This is just to get you in line with the funding entity on the technical solution for the city of Delphi. It does not obligate you to go forward with the project, but you will not go forward anyway until that PER gets submitted.
But it kinda does obligate us.
If you wanna go forward, no, it doesn't obligate
No,
you,
it
it gets you in line,
Yeah.
Now,
you can leave the line.
And this is the second line we've been in, but I'm not, I can't see why we would be voting on something without knowing what it's gonna do to our customers.
I think you have an idea, but you don't have, I mean, John, you can speak to that. You want to analyze the operation and maintenance, the capital cost, I assume.
Right, we want to develop a formal rate recommendation for you. That's one of the things that we do. We haven't done that for this precise project. We certainly haven't looked at the other options that have been discussed this evening in terms of other security pledges. So that's why there isn't a rate report and then why there won't be one next Tuesday. But the reality is, as we talked about, is a key piece of the funding plan to get us to the point where we can do the projects with the lowest impact to ratepayers is participating in this pool that SRF is proposing, and we have to have our steps done by October. That's what the timetable that Ice Miller's laid out, that gets us to that point.
But tell me how I'm wrong. We're looking at a $14 million project, give or take now. And we don't know what the impact is going to be to the ratepayers, to the citizens of town. How am I wrong?
Wrong by what?
Well,
Waiting?
no, by voting on this next Tuesday. I mean, I realize what it is, but I also realize what it's going to do as far as pushing us down the road.
What's it going to do? I think that's where we might have a difference in interpretation. What do you think that does?
I think that from word one of this situation, several months ago, we've had not enough information. We've had not all the information that we need to make decisions, and this just seems like another situation of this. And that bothers me. I represent citizens who voted me in. And they're gonna sit there and say, okay, you voted for this or whatever, what's that gonna do to my, I don't know, I can't answer them. Why is it not prudent to have all the information before we go and take any action?
I guess what the balance of that would be is if you delay taking action so that you can't participate in the pool deal, then having all the information is gonna cost you more money.
Well,
If you, this is a decision that you'll have to make, but
I'm
just,
aware of all that, but you're
Okay.
projecting all this additional expense. It may not be that, it may go the other direction. You keep telling us that if we don't do something, we're gonna be in trouble, we're gonna have more money expenditure and all this other stuff. Yeah, more than likely that's true. But, you know, as far as making a decision on something like that, I'm not sure that's the biggest, most important thing to me.
well, my role is just to provide advice. You guys have to make the decision that you think is best. Whether you approve the PER or don't approve the PER, it has to be done before we can participate in the SRF program. I do believe, with all my heart, it's in your best interest to participate in the SRF pool program if you're gonna do this project and have the lowest rate impact to your customers. There's a timeline that leads you from where you are today to make you eligible for that. And it's built around, you know, regular scheduled meetings and even a special meeting. But if you wanna deviate from that, you know, that's a decision that you can make. But the timetable leads you from where you are today to be eligible to participate in that program.
You talk about this vote coming up, getting us in line. We had a vote 3 months ago to get us in line. What's the
Apply.
difference between?
It was
well,
to apply for it.
It's called getting in
Yeah,
line.
I
You
did.
had an
Apply.
application to apply. Your intentions are to complete a report and go to the next step. This is the next step, is the actual submittal of the PR. John, do you have a range of time where you think you'll have the rate information that the council will be able to see?
Well, we have to get started first, and I think we have to get a sense that that's what the council,
Right.
not
We have to get them under contract for them to do a rate study.
You said that the pool thing,
The pool program?
that's just the deadline is Tuesday to get into this pool, correct?
The PER needs to be approved before you get it started. It's a government program,
And when is the
and it
next
has steps that you have to follow.
What's the next opportunity to do that?
Yes.
2019 would be the
Oh,
next step.
you're asking what the next opportunity?
6 months.
It'd be next year sometime, probably about, this time next year would be the
So
earliest.
if it's not done Tuesday, if they don't have to make up their mind Tuesday, then 6 months down the road, you could do the same thing.
Just so we're clear, the pool programs, they do them generally once a year. It's usually in the fall or winter. So it'd be this time, or, October of 19.
Okay, the deadline's October, but there's another time period, correct?
It's a year later.
Yeah.
It's a year
Just
later.
delay, but we just keep delaying the problem.
Push it another
So we'd be following the same steps next year.
I understand.
Ms. Abbott?
Well, I'd just like to say that I appreciate what Councilman Seward has said, because I think it's kind of been the way I've been thinking about this, is in pieces that make sense, where it's doable and where it will keep the tax rates low. Carolyn, Councilman Shockley and Pearson have said, what do we do? What's the wise thing to do? Okay, you're residents, you're paying this money just as well as I am. So, if you look at it from a ratepayer, what do you think is sensible? And if you look at it in pieces, like Dale has said, you have something that is workable and doable, and it doesn't break the taxpayers' back right away. It would probably get us through to 2019. 2019, the SRF loan will come around again. Now, it may not be 2%, it could be 2%, but what he's proposing would get you to the next round of the SRF loan, which would be fixed rate at 20 years for 2%, which is a heck of a lot better than 35 years at 4% in the pool program. So you have a workable and doable plan for a year that actually your budget may be able to take care of the majority of that without, a huge rate. So I'm going to caution you again. You need to be fiscally responsible and you need to be wise about your decision. And you are being asked to make a decision on Tuesday that you do not have all the information for. And so again, I'm just going to say, please think of it as yourself as a ratepayer. Thank you.
We've got one back here and then Shannon.
So maybe I'm confused, but I thought that the Tuesday meeting, the decision that needs to be made is to approve the PER. That does not commit that the project will actually go forward, is that correct?
That is
So
correct.
you had many stages to go through. The first was for the council to approve the application. And then the second stage, before you can go any further, is for them to approve the PER, and that's what's on the docket for Tuesday, is that correct?
Right, this is the public hearing for the PER.
Right.
As we sit here right now. Yes.
So,
But Tuesday's meeting will act as commit the city to some extent. The approval of the PER doesn't commit the city. Hiring Ice Miller, Umball, Butler Fairman for the engineering is gonna commit us even more. It doesn't mean that we have to go through with it. It just means that we look like fools if we hire them and they start doing work and then we decide as a city council that we don't wanna do it come October, November, whenever we go to close on the loan in December, I guess.
SRF will want you then to proceed to the next step, which is
understood, okay.
design, financing, engaging Umball to do your rate study so council can see exactly what those numbers are. Butler Fairman to begin the engineering design, which is a 6 to 12 month process depending on the project.
So Umball has not been authorized to proceed with the rate until Tuesday, is that correct, with the rate study? Is that fair?
Well, to be able to pay Umball, Ice Miller, and Butler Fairman and Seifert, we're gonna have to either do a bond anticipation note or borrow funds from general department or a different city department and pay it back by the end of the year, depending on which way we go. So before Board of Public Works and Safety were to hire those firms, we would want some assurances that we're gonna go forward with financing this project, instead of spending a bunch of money that
Right,
doesn't.
okay, thank you.
What is that bunch of money? How much is it gonna
How
cost?
much is that? So is there-
For the engineering, Ice Miller, and I included that in all the documents.
Yeah, I really didn't quite have enough time to review all of those documents. No, I did not,
It's
no.
all in the information.
I mean, and the amount that occurs before, when the bond's actually issued, is gonna vary. It's gonna be smaller than those three amounts combined, because I think Butler Fairman has inspection in their contract. I don't know if Ice Miller or Umball, if there would be anything you do after we close the bond.
No, we were told that in one of our meetings that the Board of Works had already put Butler, Fairman, and Seifert under contract.
To do the preliminary engineering report, which is
That's
what we're having here.
just the PER, but nothing for the design has been started.
Did you say you had an upcoming meeting with IPC?
Yes, it's not on the books yet, but it's coming.
You're gonna have to make a decision to spend that money before the number one ratepayer agrees to it. Are they gonna have a budget increase, a rate increase?
Oh, they'll have a rate increase. What we're gonna meet with them about is whether they, and Patty, can you describe this better than I am, in terms of the minimum bill for IPC?
Oh, for IPC, I mean, well, I've not really analyzed their rates, but by statute, you have to charge just and equitable rates, and you cannot give any particular class or any particular user a break, if you will, on their rates. And so they will have to pay their fair share. They will be a ratepayer like everyone else in this audience, and they will have rights like everyone else in this audience to come and speak at the public hearing if they so choose,
They don't get a rate
and
increase.
object if they so choose.
Yes, they do by ordinance. More they use, the less per they pay. But to be clear, we're just talking about their water usage and consumption that they'll pay more on. Because they've already indicated, by what one Board of Works member told me, that they will not pay anything construction-wise. So what you're talking about is the rate of their usage of water,
Then
not
they will pay
construction.
more money as a customer. It does not sound like they are contributing dollars to any particular thing.
But
from
part of
what you just said.
Part of the discussion we're having with them is a minimum bill in case that IPC were to leave town. I want to frame it in the right way. So we're
I
not-
see where you're going with that. And that's something that will be broached. There's no guarantee how IPC will react to something like that. But it's,
I think it's just part of the communication with IPC, and it'll be a question that SRF will ask, and I think it's an opportunity to try to find a mutually agreeable arrangement between IPC and the city that keeps the financial picture as clear as possible. It goes back to, this is, like I said earlier, this is a community that's